My name is Bill Poole. I'm Executive Director here at the Canadian Clay and Glass Gallery, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all here this afternoon for what is, we already will have gathered, is a spectacular opening. And so just before I introduce our board chair, Tom Mennell, I wanted to mention to you that on opening days, such as today, gallery members receive 20% off in the shop, in the gallery shop, which you know is the best place to buy anything in Southern Ontario. And so if you're a member, please be sure to check out the merchandise in the shop. If you're not a member, please become a member and then go to shop. So that's my little commercial, and it's now my pleasure to introduce our board chair, Tom Mennell.
Thank you very much, Bill, and I'm truly excited to be with you today and to be part of this opening of these awesome, spectacular exhibitions that we're opening today. And we're very fortunate to have with us Julie Oakes, whom you'll hear from. But congratulations, Julie, it's an amazing show. And congratulations to the curator, Christian Bernard Singer, and everyone who was involved in thinking about and installing this amazing exhibition, including Andrew Busis and others who I know who worked very hard to make this happen. And also as a gallery, we need to thank those people who allow us to continue to offer exhibitions like this, including the Ontario Arts Council and the Canada Council for the Arts and City of Waterloo, and all of our funders and donors and members who support this gallery. And in particular, I'd like to mention the Musagetes Fund of the Kitchener-Waterloo Community Foundation, who in part have contributed to allow us to have this exhibition here today. I'd like to also acknowledge our board members who work with me to govern this institution, as well as our hardworking staff and the many volunteers who are simply amazing in what they do and allow the institution to continue to operate. At this time, I'd like to introduce to you the curator of this exhibition, Christian Bernard Singer. And Christian has given us 5 years of tremendous curatorial expertise and wisdom. And this show was curated by Christian, and Christian has moved on to another part of his life in Montreal, and therefore he hasn't necessarily always been with us, but our new curator, Sheila McMath, has recently given birth to a boy, and therefore we've asked Christian was willing to come back and to see his vision put into real life here, and we're very fortunate for that. And at this point, I'd like to introduce you to Christian Bernard Singer. Christian.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to be back. So this show was another labor of love for 3 years for Julie, and is another tale of loss. But I don't know if you've seen the 2011 show that she did here, Swoons, where almost every day, one of the glass birds would fall to the floor and smash. And so we're sort of carrying on with the same idea of loss, but that show was more about the loss of people, and this show is about the loss of the environment in the future. It's set in the future, but actually we're kind of living it. We are in the midst of the 6th extinction, and it's a very, very serious situation, and it's our fault. So this show is about that. On the other hand, as Julie does every time, no matter what subject she takes on, beauty is the way to enter the conversation, and she does that brilliantly and beautifully. So I'd like to introduce Julie Oakes and thank her so much for this wonderful exhibition. It was such a pleasure to work with her again. And I'd like to thank Andrew Busis, who helped put it all together, along with Sandy Gordon. Julie?
Welcome to the opening of Awestruck Calendar of Ecology. I'm going to be very articulate in terms of expressing what this exhibition is about. So I'm not going to be doing it just ad lib. This is something that I've thought about, and I'd like to try as clearly as possible to relate to you what the ideas are behind this exhibition. So please excuse me if I end up reading a lot from my notes. Ecological concerns about the sustainability of the planet create a different relationship to living rurally than that experienced during the last 100 years, when farming was the occupation of 60% of the world's population. Then there was a working conversation between people and the earth. The group of 7 related to the great Canadian landscapes with an immersion that was not yet as distanced by modernity as is evident today. The population has grown 4 times since the previous generation, and the spacing and interdependence of people and institutions with the land has changed to the extent that life systems and species are threatened. The title, Awestruck Calendar of Ecology, addresses the major concerns within this exhibition. So starting with awestruck. Sensation refers to the processing of the senses by the sensory system. If the senses are processing a phenomena, they are challenged by the uniqueness of the sensory experience and left somewhat flabbergasted. In the event of a tornado, the result of the phenomenal experience is a combination of amazement and confusion caused by the mysterious suddenness of a cataclysmic happening. Awestruck. Awestruck. Struck is coupled most often with by lightning, an unpredictable flash, a charge. The word tornado derives from the Latin root for thunder. It is synonymous with cyclone, a word popularized in 1939 by The Wizard of Oz, in which a young girl from Kansas is sucked upwards by a cyclone with her little dog, Toto, and transported to Oz, a land where good and evil battle out their respective influences, while the impressionable little girl attempts to deal with it. Dorothy, truly female, she is inherently prone to see the positive in her challenging encounters. I believe that women are more positive generally because they have to raise the young and they have to believe in the ongoing life of this planet, rather than challenging it, as quite often happens from a male perspective. So Dorothy finds room within her developing philosophy to take into account negative forces like the Wicked Witch. Despite her exposure to evil, she continues to show empathy for the plights of other beings, and eventually is set back on her earth, in her home, welcomed and wiser. Throughout her adventure, she reflects upon the strangeness of her sensations by chatting to a small domestic animal. Dorothy is an example of a female framework of consideration. She processes the phenomenon of Oz and returns changed, but with her positivity unaffected. She kept an ideal of goodness and beauty in mind and maintained a bella figura throughout. Ruby red shoed, hair braided and bowed, and always polite. I understand her priorities, and Awestruck Calendar of Ecology adheres to a similar point of view. Although the content deals with the potential for ecological destruction, it is couched in workmanship and balanced through beauty. The blue tornado, the central piece, is a combination of a natural phenomena represented by the bluebirds and a man-made phenomena in the effects that man has wrought upon this earth, represented by the recycled blue bottle glass. The bluebirds are beautiful, so that the sensation that is processed is likely to be one of fulfillment. Pleased by the bright turquoise swirl of crystal, with the light glittering through and reflecting, suspended in the rarefied stillness of this museum space, the impact of the blue tornado can be positive. The recycled blue bottle glass is a manifestation of human smartness, for it is amazing that we can make this phenomenal substance, glass. But the pile of debris is also loaded with allusions to progress, from the concept of the sophistication of a glass container to that which it once contained. Medicines were traditionally bottled in blue glass. There are remnants in that pile of bottles for medicines, perfumes, liquors, and splinters and shards of blue glass decorations. The pile shows humankind's expressive, excessive inventiveness supreme. And then there arises the need to deal with the discards, to recycle, to lessen the burden upon an overladen environment. Scientifically, a tornado occurs when a cumulonimbus cloud reacts with a low pressure system circulating to form a condensation funnel that connects with the earth. It is the closest phenomena found within nature to the sky is falling. The phenomenon of a tornado surprises and then amazes man. It is still more incomprehensible than understood and is not easily reined in by statistics, partially because each tornado possesses a unique character based on nature and nurture, what it began to be at birth and what it grew to be in the context of its environment. America, Canada included, has a history of more tornadoes than anywhere else in the world. But this statistic is acknowledged as skewed because of the great land mass of the area, just as more people die in tornadoes and hurricanes in Bangladesh than elsewhere is also skewed because the density of the population is such that it would make that statistic be what it is. America's tornado alley stretches from British Columbia to Quebec, from Mexico up to stop just south of the Arctic. But as a tornado closer to the coast is termed a hurricane, and this is the reason the seaboards are not on the list, virtually all of America could potentially experience the sky falling. Man has attempted to get on top of the phenomena, as storm watchers classify with Fujita scale ratings that graduated to enhanced Fujita scale ratings as they flew off the first rating scale, or as Taurus scale ratings, and a T11 being a super scary tornado. And tornado ratings have gradually raised, tornadoes have become worse. The famous eye of the tornado is indeed still, but being in the center means that the circumference has passed over and will do so again to exit, and it is on the circumference that the most damage occurs, that the tornado rips with winds up to 300 miles an hour, winds that can take down a skyscraper. It is this dervish of energy that connects the sky to the earth with a strange and erratic emotion. Behind my blue tornado slouches the beast, from William Butler Yeats's poem about a second coming. Written during the horrors of the Second World War, Yeats suspected that were there to be a second coming of Christ, it may not be a positive reincarnation. He wrote, "Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are filled with a passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming. Hardly are those words out, with a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight, a waste of desert sand, a shape with lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun, is moving its slow thighs, while all about it, wind shadows of the indignant desert birds. The darkness drops again, but now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to a nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast is it? Its hour come round at last, slouching towards Bethlehem to be born. So this is my slouching beast coming behind the tornado. Hornets, 52 hornets representing the weeks are clinging to its being. I discovered this poem through an English lit class at the University of Manitoba, taught by a handsome and enigmatic Irish professor. Naive, impressionable, and bold, I was quite young, I initiated an intimate liaison with him. The next morning, his world was shattered as his girlfriend was found brutally raped and on the edge of death on the banks of the Assiniboine River. He was traumatized by the news, weeping for her, ashamed, as was I, of our liaison the night before, right around the time of her demise. What rough beast was slouching? I never saw him again. Her bloodied shoe was found in his basement. Then he went missing, and the university denounced him. In the news weeks later, the story broke when the woman awoke from her coma to reveal the name of the man who had assaulted her, and it was not our professor. The image of a slouching beast, derived from Yeats's Second Coming, has become for me a seminal image of the potential for wrongdoings, an image of destruction, the advent of evil overturning good. Following behind the blue tornado, driven by a master on high, the beast slouches, moving forward. So the blue tornado represents a moment frozen in time, a sensation, a phenomena that creates awe. In an art context, the idea of the blue tornado was an invitation to make a piece that might elicit a similar awestruck response. The birds were made with Geisterblight's studio in June with the glass master Alfred Engere. Where is Alfred? In conjunction with Greg Herman, Sean Carrington, and a visit from Carl Schantz, another glass master. We used the bronze mold originally made for the clear glass birds of swoons, my exhibition here at the Canadian Clay and Glass in 2011. This June, we did the hot glass casting of the individual 120 blue glass birds that make up this tornado. There is actually a short video of the fabrication process available that will be left here at the museum if anybody wants to see it. Swoons was based on an expression of the specificity and fragility of existence. The Awestruck calendar of ecology furthers this research by addressing the interdependence of species. The concept is explored within the concept of a calendar year. So Awestruck, calendar of ecology. The calendar is a product of civilization, organizing time into manageable increments by relating to the cycles of the sun and moon. It is another example of man's cleverness. This cleverness is an attribute particular to our species. For animals and plants, although they register the changes of seasons, growing coats of fur, shedding leaves, seeding, and developing in relation to the sun and moon, supposedly lack the overview, the concept of these changes manifested through time. The calendar is also a result of man's ability to number, also an ability lacking within animals and plants, although this is open to question. Awestruck calendar of ecology is set within a dystopian future, as if the blue tornado has passed through the land, and now all of this is a presentation within a museum, memorializing and attempting to decipher a previous existence. Starting with the number 1 for one day and night in the biblical tradition, after creating the species and finishing with man and a rib minus, woman, God created the day and night. So the tapestry and the gouache is the first piece of this calendar and is titled from the saying, while it is day here, it is night there. Or you can dig a hole clear through to China. Day here, night there is a hand-woven, hand-dyed tapestry on generous loan by the collectors Tom and Karen Close. The tapestry was woven in China, patterned from the gouache of the same name. It was arranged through Mr. Harry Lee of Henan Yilong Company Limited and woven over 4 months by 3 women, Chi Huao Zhang, Li Li, and Huan Hu, who live and work in the village of weavers Haoxi in the province of Shandong. It depicts a black bear identifying Canada, and for China, a panda bear, in foliage which is now, but has not always been, growing in both countries. The internationality of modern horticulture has blurred the boundaries of plant species. Imitating a Darwinian migration of plants, speeded up by the abilities to transport and develop, a kind of plant immigration. Native to both countries, there are rabbits. There is an indication of the Asian story of the rabbit and the moon. That will be examined a little bit further when we talk about the lunar cycle, with the bear paw on the moon referencing Canada's First Nations iconography. Richard, my partner, and I lived in Beijing during April and May of 2014 at the Where Residency, run by the Canadian curator Gordon Laurent, in order to accomplish the making of the tapestry. 3 days before we left, we visited the village of Haoxi to see it. It had been woven 8 inches on the loom, and it arrived in the studio in Canada 3 months later. China is horribly polluted, and for 2 months we didn't see a sky where the clouds were defined against the blue, for all skies there were vague. It was a shock to arrive back in BC and be confronted with the clarity of relatively clean air. Interconnectivity. China and Canada, both of the same planet. The pollution there could be our day here. The expertise available to artists from Chinese facilitators carried through to the bronzes depicting the 4 seasons. The bronzes are named for women from Shakespeare. There is Ophelia, a woman who died for love, as the rabbit, Spring, and Katharina, from the Taming of the Shrew, for the mole, a species of shrew, Summer. They were cast at Pyramid Bronze Works in Kelowna before visiting China. And Lady Macbeth, who's the fox, the fall, and Juliet is Winter, the mouse, originally made in oil-based clay in my studio in Canada, were cast by Nina Lee at the Jiangxi Tongqing Metal Company Limited in China. Again, day here, night there. Cultural interconnectivity. Daydreams, the black boxes that we see over here, are 7 black boxes for the 7 days of the week, containing domestic animals. The names of them are like children's names: hammy box, fishy box, horsey box. Like the black box of an airplane that gives a record of a journey past, the boxes are evidence of the era before the blue tornado hit. Like the inhabitants of Pompeii, here domesticated animals appear to be petrified, caught in actions of play, mothering, sleeping, socializing. Not to be too macabre, the titles of this installation is Daydreams, in an attempt to soften what might be a prescient imagination of the future. A positive female, like Dorothy, trying to figure out Oz. A paradiola identifies the markings of the moon. In China, the moon is marked as a rabbit, not as a man in the moon. So Moon Rabbit lives on the moon. The 28 gouaches over on the far wall represents the lunar cycle. Moon rabbit lives on the moon, pounding the elixir of life in a mortar and pestle for his companion, the moon goddess Changi. Changi protects moon rabbit from Dog, who tries to eat moon rabbit. As Dog nips and bites, the moon wanes until Changi helps rabbit to heal and grow again. At the new moon, in this particular series, the Canadian blue heron enters. All of the plants that you see throughout the moon cycle were plants that we encountered during our stay in China. At the full moon, we see the Chinese red-crested heron, and then at the very last day that we're leaving, you see the Canadian blue heron leaving the frame of the cycle, and the last plants that we encountered, the dandelions, were just starting to seed. The 12 months are wild animals that live in North America. With the exception of the star-nosed mole, all of these animals are actually found within the region of British Columbia where we live. The star-nosed mole is only found in eastern Canada and was luckily procured through the help of Catherine Ronzio from the collection of the ROM. The porcelain urns are emulating a sepulchral moment or mausoleum. Each urn has the actual DNA of that animal along with it displayed curiously, as if in a future rethinking of the idea of the animal. And the whale, by the way, is transgendering from male to female. We see the whale just at the point where the rib is being taken out of him. Now, I thought it would be a nice idea to perhaps introduce you personally to each one of these animals. So I'm going to start off. This is January, you start the year off fine. February, he's my little Valentine. March, I'd like to march him down the aisle. Easter, he's no Easter bunny. When he smiles, yeah, my head's in a whirl, 'cause I become the artist calendar girl every day of the year. Maybe if I meet your dad and mom, he'll let me take you to the junior prom. July like a firecracker, all aglow. August at the beach, he steals the show. Yeah, my head's in a whirl, 'cause I become the artist calendar girl every day of the year. Fox, like a fox, I'm red and lean. Romeo to Juliet on Halloween. The beaver, November, it's my birthday. It's all about me, and that urn is going to be mine. December, there's a present 'neath your Christmas tree. So yeah, my head's been in a whirl since I became the artist calendar girl for the Canadian clay and glass. So now I go down to here. I'm not finished. I've got to go back to here now. That's what I was practicing in the car every time I drove over here. Okay, now, Vivaldi-like, and more collected. We'll move on to the 4 seasons. We begin with winter, the 4 paintings at the far end and moving into the Tower Gallery. Then we have fall, spring, and summer. We actually go summer and spring. We end up with spring because this exhibition, in terms of the walk through the exhibition, is ending up with a positive image, the maypole dancer. So the maypole dancer is a combination between a pole dancer, head flung back, reaching up the pole to heaven, legs akimbo, alluring, enticing, energetic, a seduction towards procreation, and a bird. Plumed and feminine within the protected recesses of her womb, she shelters a glass egg. With allusions to maypole dancing, where nubile young women fluttered and danced around the phallic maypole to herald the season of budding and blooming, the maypole dancer twirls, an element of danger in her sharp and spiky exterior. This brings the exhibition back to the beginning, the basilisks. So, bats have been disappearing in North America due to a white fungus that attacks their respiratory system. It's termed white nose syndrome, and their little noses turn white, and then they die. These bats, my bats, 280 of them in the dystopian future, are now completely white, having adapted or morphed into a new species. There are 280 bats to indicate the period of human gestation. We are pregnant not for 9 months, but actually for 280 days. That's how the due date is calculated. Each bat on the bat column is dated, and it begins on January the 26th, and it finishes on November 2nd, my birthday. So it essentially goes through the period that my mother was pregnant with me. Included in this cycle, and labeled as well, are the birth dates of my son, my daughter, and also the birth date of the father of my children. There are male bats, female bats, and offsprings. The columns are in a circular womb-like configuration, and while making these 280 bats, I better understood the concept of labor and creation, the repetitive cycles of art making, and the link between the idea and the reality that comes about with the creation of phenomenal objects. Interconnectivity is inherent to ecology, but it's also been very essential to this exhibition. To bring about art, to create a sensation, Awestruck calendar of ecology, human input was the key. I would like to acknowledge first and foremost, and above all, sincerely and superlatively, I'm going to start to cry, my partner, Richard Fogarty, who designed, printed, discussed, advised, built, drove, hung in, and encouraged. Thank you. Next, Christian Bernard Singer. For without his vision and belief, this work would not even be in existence. For we all know it takes a yes to bring about a conception. Christian. Thank you. Next, it furthers one to have somewhere to go. I'm also at this point going to thank my parents, my father, whom I lost while preparing for this show, and my sweet mother, Dawn and Joyce Cowan. To make this happen also involves financial acumen and support, and I want to thank the sponsors of this exhibition, the people who personally sponsored it, Tom and Karen Close, Suzanne Berger, Nadine Guy, and Bernie and Mary Moser. For the body parts that embellish the urns, I'd like to thank Christopher Oakes, Clover Fogarty, Akira and Alfred Hansen, Aaron Deans with the Allen Brooks Nature Center, Herman Kleinschneider, and the ROM. And then there is here. This magnificent space and the wonderful facilitators of the Canadian Clay and Glass. I will be leaving behind 4 of the blue glass birds, 1 for each season, to go into the collection of the Canadian Clay and Glass Gallery. And at this particular point, I would like to thank once again Christian Bernard Singer, then Bill Poole, the director. Thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the preparators. Andrew Bousis, and Sandy Gordon, who unfortunately was not able to be here today, but you will see Sandy again, won't you? Yeah. It was an amazing experience. Andrew? You see, I picked what I got because I felt that it suited your personality, so I've got to make sure that I've got the right one, or else... There. Andrew? Yeah. Thank you, and Sandy. Thanks very much. And then Alfred. The glass master. And actually, I think that for Alfred should really have been making bats rather than birds, because he's a little bit batty. Yeah. And then as well, I would like to thank Catherine Ronzio, who found me the mole. Thanks, Catherine. Nadine, she's not here? Okay, and Willie. Willie, you can give it to Nadine. Okay. Thanks very much. And just a big overall thank you for the privilege of being able to show here once again and bring this to fruition. I'm also going to just call up the Lehmans because I have a present for Jacob as well. Jacob Lehman, you are about to meet. So on this particular note, a high note, let's open the exhibition Awestruck Calendar of Ecology.